Hello, welcome to my review of Brockhampton's Roadrunner, New Light, New Machine. This is their sixth studio album following Ginger, which shortly after Ginger's release, they did take a small little hiatus in a sense, where, of course, during the pandemic, they didn't release an album. They decided to instead release basically songs, couple songs each week over the summer where they would just, they could use whatever samples they wanted and they just release it on their website and put it on YouTube for a short time. That was called Technical Difficulties. That was really good. That got fans, like myself, very excited for what was next to come from the band. While this project does not sound a whole lot like Technical Difficulties, I do think that they definitely stepped up their game in some aspects, especially I feel like on the writing portions. Biggest influence though for this album, as a lot of fans know, is Joba, the one who is on the cover of this, and he was also on the cover of Ginger. His father took his own life, and that was the inspiration for most of this project, as that subject is touched on a lot with the title tracks and kind of incorporated all throughout multiple segments of the album. This album, though, I would say is pretty good for being, I guess, what you could call the technical last group project from Brockhampton, where we see in the next album, The Family, it's just Kevin, and then the last project, TM, which is kind of just thrown together songs that were scrapped from before. But enough about that. Let's get into the official review. Let's start off with the highs. I would say straight off the bat, Buzz Cut. I really liked this. I remember in 2021 when the album came out, this was in my top 5 most listened to songs of the year. Kevin, just goes absolutely off. His verse is one of the best that he's had, I feel like, in a really long time. In terms of like energy, it felt like, this was him, like, after being, like, cooped up in the pandemic for so long, this is him, like, finally getting to go out and, like, be himself again, and, like, he was almost, like, reborn in a new sense. I love the Danny Brown feature. I think that he meshed extremely well with their sound. Not that his sound is, like, too far off from Brockhampton's. I know he's, a big inspiration for them. Not as big as, like, some other people, but you can definitely see the influence, especially with some of the quirky instrumentals that they pick. It's very Danny Brown-esque. I think he fits super well. I really like the outro on this. The whole beat change up after his verse is really nice. We get to see Jabari for the first time on an actual album instead of him being on the producing side. That's, I think, personally, in my opinion, that's a huge plus. I really like what he adds to this album, as we'll see in like some future tracks. Other high moments, Bankroll, which was a teased song all the way from 2018. Finally, 3 years later, we got to hear it released officially with A$AP Ferg with an amazing verse on the, like, straight from the get-go, and a chorus with A$AP Rocky. And I really like this track. I think that Merlin absolutely kills it on this, as I feel like he is the shining star of it. And as I said before, I really like Jabari on this song as well. He, I feel like, has a very smooth third verse. It just flows really well. But the main focus here is Merlin. His verse, I feel like, is just also one of the best I feel like he's had in a minute. While he did have some good moments on Technical Difficulties and Ginger, I feel like some of his best moments were on Iridescence, and I feel like this is one of his best in a minute. The only thing I don't really like about this track would be the outro, where it's just like slowed down, kind of DJ Screw-esque, where it's like chopped up moments from the song, slowed down. I don't really like that. I think it was kind of, in a sense, like a lazy way to wrap up the song instead of ending it some other way. The next track, though, The Light, is also one of the major highlights of this. Being one of 2 title tracks, in a sense. We get to finally hear Joba talk about his father's passing, how it affected him and his mother, and This song comes off the like on the opposing side of the Light Part 2, which is the final track, where this is him seeming angry in a sense of his father's passing. Like he did, as he says, he didn't get to make amends, and like the way he left his mom and everything. It's a horrifying thing for him, and him being his father, it's hard for him, I think, to grapple this whole sort of thing. Kevin also has an amazing verse. I really like him on this, where I don't like Kevin's verse as much on the Light Part 2. I think he fits much more on this one. I really like the chorus for this song. I know it's not the main focus, like the verses are really what you're supposed to be paying attention to, but I wish that there was at least one more chorus on this song. I think it's just so catchy, and it just immediately every time it comes on, like, I don't know, I find myself singing along to it. I just really like it. I think it flows super well into both verses, but I guess it wouldn't have really made sense to throw another one in there. Windows, the next track, I think is one of Brockhampton's best songs they've ever released, being the biggest posse cut that we have since Bleach. Actually bigger, now that I think about it, because we have a feature from newer artist So Gone So Flexy, and he's got the intro verse. Everybody absolutely kills it on this. I know not a ton of people are a big fan of Joba's verse because he touches on the pandemic a little bit and politics, which I don't know, I'm kind of impartial to. I think it's nice that they touch on it a little bit because they don't touch too much on politics other than when it comes to racism. And we saw in Saturation 2 when Matt had his verse on Junkie about sexual assault. We don't see them talk too much about politics or basically any sort of like social issues all that much besides those couple topics. So I didn't mind it too bad. It's, I think, the only moment on the album except from Buzzcut where it's like slightly mentioned by Kevin. I don't know. It's not too bad. I really like everyone's verses. Merlin with another just absolutely shining moment on this. I also really like Matt's verse. I think his gets a little bit overshadowed because Merlin was right before him. So Gone So Flexy did really good as a feature on this. I really like him on the intro. My favorite part, though, has to be Ryan Beatty once again coming back. Since we heard him on Ginger, but him coming back for a little bridge on the later half of the track, that's my favorite part of the song by far. It's so damn good, so catchy. I'll Take You On, the next track, is a really good kind of R&B pop-esque track with Charlie Wilson on it. I wish Charlie Wilson, though, would have had a bigger moment on it. He's just on the intro and the outro, and I don't know. I mean, the way that the track goes, he wouldn't have really fit, but I wish that they would have found a way for him to, whether it was like doing more backup vocals or just something. Because, I mean, to have such a big name on one of your tracks and then kind of throwing him to the wayside, I feel like a little bit is, I don't know, not meaningless, but I feel like they could have utilized him more unless that's all they could get him for. I don't know. Some people I know feel the same way about A$AP Rocky and Bankroll. Like, you have such a big artist, and he's just doing the chorus. But whatever. I really like what everyone does here. I don't think there's anyone who disappoints at all. Everyone brings their A game on this. One of the better tracks on the album. As I did touch on before, Light Part 2, I do really like. I think Joba, once again, absolutely kills it on this. It is a very touching and emotional verse, and one that can be definitely hard to listen to. I understand if you're someone who has lost a loved one to suicide, this is definitely a heart-wrenching verse. It's not easy, but, this feels very cathartic for him in a sense. Him finally getting this off his chest and kind of just being free and open and able to talk about it. I'm not a huge fan of Kevin's verse, not for anything in particular, but because I feel like he kind of said what he needed to on Buzzcut and on The Light, although those were more aggressive. This is him being much more calm and collected. I just feel like his verse doesn't add much to the song. It's mostly what Joba has to say. I don't know. It's not a bad verse. It's good, but in my opinion, it just does nothing really for me, but I would still say it is one of the better tracks on the album, but that's because of Joba. And although I'm not sure when I do most of my reviews I'll be talking about deluxes, but I have to say, I know it throws a lot of the fan base in disagreement because some people say that this song is absolutely horrid, but the song Sex I do really like. I think it's fun to see Brockhampton go in this sort of direction, although it's the only time we see, which is fine. We don't need them to do a whole bunch of songs like this, like party tracks that are all sexual and everything. We have plenty of other artists who do that, and it's their thing, and they do it well. But I did really like how they did it on this, and it was fun and funny to see. That's it. It's just a song I think is really fun, and I think it's honestly and unironically, in my opinion, one of their best songs they've made. I think that everyone kills it on this. That's it. It's just a fun track. I just feel like I need to say it. The other two deluxe tracks, not really much to say. They're kind of just middle brow, nothing really too exciting, although I do wish on the song Pressure you do get a really good Dom verse, which he was definitely overshadowed on this album and left out a fair bit. Him and Merlin have a really good spot on that song. I wish we could have heard someone else on the first half of that instrumental, because I really like the first half with Pressure before the beat switched to Bow Wow. I wish we could have heard someone like Matt on that. I feel like someone else could have just done really well on that beat. Low points of the album. I wasn't a huge fan of Chain On being thrown onto this album. That was one of the songs that was released with the Technical Difficulties collection. It just doesn't, I feel like it doesn't really fit the sound all too well. I don't know. That's just me. Like, it's a good song, and I like that they added the Dom verse on the end. But overall, I don't know. Just the whole, like, minimalist beat, I think it fits super well on Technical Difficulties. But, I don't know. It just, to me, I feel like as a project altogether, this would be a low point. But, like, on its own, it is really good. And I think JPEG Mafia does a good job. I really like Dom verse, too. I'm glad they added that on, but it doesn't really better the album, in a sense. Old News, while I do like as a song, I like everything about it, except for the Baird, I think is how you say his name, the Baird verse. I feel like he just sounds like a lazy Joba. Like, he doesn't bring any charisma to his verse. I don't really like the vocal layering on it. It's like two of him doing his verse at once, which works in some aspects, but I just don't like how it sounds on this verse. I don't know. It just does nothing for me. I think it actually takes away. It's kind of kills the vibe up until that point, and then it picks up back again after that. But I feel like they could have thrown someone else on it, like given Jabari another, like, a verse instead of him just having the chorus. They could have put Dom on this song. Just, I don't know. They could have done anything, but in my opinion, except for have him on it, because I feel like he just completely takes away from this. I don't know. Maybe his solo music is better. I haven't really gotten into it, but he just did nothing for me on this. Dear Lord is not bad, but I feel like, in a sense, it doesn't really fit well. Like, it fits the narrative of the album, but I'm not sure if it really does too much for me. I like the emotional sentiment that it has, and I know, like, the story is really touching that Bareface wrote this. I don't believe with the intent for it to be on the album, but I do like that he wrote this. It just feels like something that, I don't know, he would have, like, written and then given to Joba to, like, show, well, I don't know, to show his emotion and his expression, but I don't know. To me, does really nothing, and I feel like kind of is a weird moment in the album, like right at the end where you have like a really big song like Don't Shoot Up the Party, and then you have The Light Part 2 right after, so you have two big songs, and then Dear Lord is in the middle, and it's kind of like just this weird moment where it's like mostly a cappella. I don't know. It's kind of strange moment in the album, like, just, I don't know, but does nothing for me personally. When I Ball, I know a lot of people really like. It has the Neptunes on the production, but to me, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's not the worst Brockhampton song, definitely, but it's just, I'm not a huge fan of the vocal pitching on this. I know it has like a purpose because the whole song is about childhood and like things that people went through and sort of being appreciative for your parents, but uh yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Is like, you know, I feel like for the Neptunes producing this, the beat's not all great. Like, it's just okay. I do like Dom's verse and I do like Matt's verse. I'm not a huge fan though of Joba, like his little section he has, the bridge with his pitched up vocals. I'm not sure if it's Joba who does the chorus too, but I'm not a huge fan of the chorus either. It kind of gives me like Fever Dream vibes for some reason. I can't really explain that, but it just does. But yeah, I would consider that a low point of the album too, which I know would upset a lot of people because a lot of people really like that song. Middle points, I know a lot of people don't like Count on Me, and Kevin does talk about that on The Family, that it was mainly just used to be like their like explosive moment, which it didn't turn out to be, unfortunately for them. I don't really mind it all too much. Some people I know really don't like it in the fan base, but it's not too bad. It's one that I'm not like, oh my gosh, this has to be skipped. Like, skip this every time. But it's not one I like am like looking forward to listening to every time I play the album. What's the Occasion has, I feel like it's going in all the right places, but the execution of it just doesn't get to, I feel like, where it needs to be. I'm not sure what's exactly missing from the song, but it's just missing something. Maybe another verse from someone, but I don't know. Something on it's just missing, and it needs a little more of something, but I can't just put on what it is. It's kind of just middle for me. Like, I really like Matt's verse. Joba's is like, it's not bad. It's a good verse. I feel like part of the problem with this album is that Joba, granted, I understand he's like the focal point with his father's passing. This is a lot of the group, kind of helping him heal, which we do hear about on The Family again later on. But he really, I feel like, overshines a little bit on this album, and I think he's got moments on songs that aren't necessary. Like on this song, I don't know. Like, he does the chorus, which I really like, but I feel like his verse, like, they could have had someone else on there instead. But it is what it is. Don't Shut Up the Party. It's a fun song, but it's nothing like absolutely crazy. I do like the little bit of social commentary on it. But again, I don't know. It's just nothing crazy. It's fun. It's definitely a banger, but I would not say it's in like the upper echelon of this album, like some of the tracks I listed before. As I did say, this is kind of the last real Brockhampton album, where after going on tour for this, the tour would get canceled due to COVID and possible other dynamics in the group, which were speculated about but never really touched on. Yeah, it's definitely, I feel like, a good way for them to go out in a sense. If this was their last album, I feel like it wouldn't have been a horrible place to stop. But we do get 2 more from them. Whether you think that's bad or good depends on you. But I do really like this album. It's really fun. It's one I listen to a lot. I actually I'm not like a huge leak person when it comes to a lot of music artists, but this is one album where I do really like the leaks for this album. So I will listen to those too, but this is one of their albums that I go through more because I feel like it has a really good replay value. While it does have some kind of dud moments, I feel like as a whole, it still does what it needs to, and I like what the album actually stands for. I will touch on, I know I don't talk about this really at all, maybe I will more, but the cover art, this is not the original. I don't have the original. I'm not a big fan of. It is like a CD cover, similar to Yeezus, or who did it like most famously. Or you have like Beer Bongs and Bentleys. Came out a couple years ago. But I'm not a huge fan of the actual cover. I feel like how good Brockhampton has some of their album covers. The actual CD cover is not great, This one I feel like is just okay. They had some alternate ones that they showed here and there. I really liked a lot more, but that's why I got this edition. Even if the discs don't look as cool, yeah, I just want to touch on that. Not a big fan of the actual original album cover, but it is what it is. Still got this one, which I like. But yeah, that's the album. I really like this one. It feels definitely like a group project, which I will touch on in TM, which I don't think feels like one as much. But yeah, this is a good way for them to go out in a sense, and is a good final album. I feel like it could be called, even though it's not. They still have 2 more. This does, in a sense, feel like a final album to me. So yeah, I would rate this one about an 86%. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next review, which will be The Family by Brockhampton. Can't wait to see you then. Thank you. Bye.